I was driving back from the coast one night when I ended up hitting this weird-looking, what I can only call an animal, totaling my car in the process. This happened to me on the East Coast when I was driving back from the beach. I was driving through a heavily forested area on the way back to town. It was dark, and since there's thick forest on both sides of the road, it didn't allow for a lot of moonlight. There was a bend in the road, and I remember as I was approaching it, this weird creature stepped out of the woods and ran right in front of my car. I hit this thing head on, and it damaged the shit out of my engine. It was all a blur looking back. I remember it running out in front of me and hitting it, but after I hit it, I don't know what happened to it. I screamed when I hit it because I tried to swerve, but unfortunately, I was unable to miss this thing. It looked pale, had a snout, and I couldn't really see any fur. Then again, I only looked at it for a second before it hit my car. The entire front of my car looked like it had been hit by a moose. I didn't even know what to do, or how to process what had happened. Just make sure you're careful at night when driving, and if you see something come out onto the road, use the e-brake as best as you can. I live right next to a Navajo reservation, and have made friends with many of the people there my age. We like to hang out, play video games, and just be normal teenagers. I walk over there a lot since my best friend lives just a little less than a mile away from me. This isn't a long trek, and usually only takes me about 25 to 30 minutes. I've made this trip dozens of times now, and have grown very comfortable with it. I know the people along the way, so I'm not scared or on the edge at all. There is a patch of forest, however, about midway there. It's a little unnerving sometimes. There is always that feeling of being watched. This was a regular occurrence for me, so I tried to just ignore it and shake it off as my mind was playing tricks on me. This day, I spent more time at my friend's house than I meant to, and when I left, it was already getting dark. I reached the stretch of forest right as the sun disappeared from the sky. I shivered a little as I readied myself to begin the journey. I was 10 steps in when I heard a branch snap. You know, the sound, the one that screams that there is definitely someone or something there with you. I froze, not sure of what I should do next. Should I run? Should I turn around and book it back to my friend's house? I didn't know the best option in this situation. So I whispered, "Hello?" hearing my voice crack as the words fell from my lips. I don't know why I even opened my mouth, but it was out there, so I listened for any reply. My heart sank when the answer came back in the sound of my own voice. "Hello?" I started to breathe too fast, my heart pounding against my chest. I felt like I might faint. "Hello?" My voice came again, but not from my mouth. I wanted to run, but my feet felt cemented to the ground. I couldn't scream. I couldn't reply, as my voice echoed over and over from only a short distance away. I couldn't pinpoint exactly where it was coming from. It sounded like it was everywhere around me. "Hello?" It repeated. "Stop it!" I finally managed to tear from my lips. Everything went silent. For a long minute, nothing happened. The air only grew stale, and I realized for the first time there were no typical forest sounds. There were no bugs, no frogs, or crickets. Nothing. I stood there, terrified, waiting to see what could happen next. "Stop it," it mimicked back. I'd had enough and was willing for my heavy legs to move. Before I could take a step, I heard rustling in the bushes only 20 feet to my left. I watched in horror as a deer head with huge antlers protruded through the bush. As it came further out and stood up on twos, I took off. I flew out of those woods and all the way home in record time. I said nothing to my mom when I got there. I just went up to my room, laid down, and thought about what happened. My mother came in at some point and asked me if everything was all right. I replied yes, that I was just tired. I don't know why I didn't tell her. I guess I might have just been afraid of how she would react. I called my friend and told him everything. He freaked out and told me that no matter what happened that night, to not reply or look out my window. This terrified me even more. He said to call him the next morning and he would explain more, and that he had to speak to his grandfather as soon as possible. That night I didn't sleep. I stayed awake listening to every little sound the night brought. Around 3 a.m., just as I was about to drift off, I noticed the air changed. The night sounds quieted. I felt my heart begin to pound. I lay there and waited, pulling the covers up over my head like a child, far too scared to move. It came after a long moment. "Hello?" I cried. It was all I could do. "Hello? Stop it!" It mocked what I had said in the woods again. It was terrifying enough when it copied what I said. But then, it did something new. It called my name. "Amy," my mother's voice. "Amy. Amy, come here." "Hello? Stop it!" My voice again. For the rest of the night, the creature outside my window called my name in my mother's voice and repeated what I said in the woods, over and over. In the morning, when the sun broke through the dark, it finally stopped. I fell into a fitful sleep. I woke around noon to my friend calling to tell me that he had spoken to his grandfather and could explain what had happened to me. He said there was a creature called the U.S.A who goes on all fours. He explained that it was an evil witch that used dark magic to transform into an animal with the attributes it required, and that it had caught my scent and knew me now. I was also given a warning that since it knew me, it would always follow me, that I would always have to be careful. Last night, I heard scratching on my window, then a low hum. The creature began saying my name again, but also adding in things I hadn't said in my mother's voice. At one point, it started calling my name, but drawing it out really like, "Amy." It tried to get me to come inside, or open the door and let it in. This went on all night. At this point, I feel like I'm going crazy. I don't know what to do. Is it seriously going to stalk the shadows around me for the rest of my life? I don't think I can handle that. I've been seeing some really freaky stuff out at my uncle's ranch outside of Flagstaff. I should probably preface this a little. I'm very close with my uncle, and my parents were, let's just say, unable to properly take care of me when I was in my teens. So, I went to go live with my uncle for a few years until I turned 18. Things, for the most part, were pretty normal. However, at night, things seemed to take a turn for the worst, and it only progressively got worse. This is actually kind of hard for me to type out because I know a lot of you probably won't believe me. But I didn't believe this stuff either until I saw it with my own eyes. There are a few times at night I would see bizarre things, evil things. Sometimes they would be these weird lights in the sky, far off in the distance, accompanied by weird noises. Everything from screams, howls, bangs, and booms. Sometimes I would hear weird banging on our house and windows while we were trying to sleep. I remember one night specifically, I woke up to the horses freaking out. Something had spooked them. My uncle at the time was gone, so it was my job to tend things when he wasn't there. I'm only 16 at the time, so I had to man up real quick and grab a flashlight to go see what was going on. As I am making my way to the stalls, I practically screamed in terror as I see this, what I can only describe as a 10-foot tall bear-looking thing run off in the distance. It almost had the face of something that would resemble a bear. It had a snout, but it was hunched over with its arms and hands curled closer to its body, but it was running on 2 feet. It was dark, and this thing moved so fast I couldn't get a really good look at it. Even though that I can give you the above details, I also noticed that it had unusual eye shine. Actually, I would say it had more like an eye glow than anything else. I remember I screamed out loud, "What the fuck was that?" I quickly made it into the stalls, and the horses were freaking the hell out. I spent some time trying to calm them all down, and eventually got them calmed down enough and went back to the house. It was almost 3 in the morning. I was so freaked out by the whole ordeal, I wasn't able to just fall right back asleep. I kept hearing weird noises off in the distance, and what sounded like heavy thudding that would come close to the house and then stop. Like if somebody wore huge boots and sprinted right up to the house, and then just stopped. I'm really not sure how else to describe it. There's been other times we've seen a weird blue light off in the distance, and weird noises that happen at the same time. I remember another time when my uncle was home, and this happened to be in the evening when the sun was setting. I remember sitting out in the living room with my uncle, and this weird pale-looking face pops up in the window staring at us. It didn't have a nose, but it did have sharp teeth and weird reptilian-like eyes. I froze in terror. My uncle jumps up and grabbed his rifle and bolts out the door. This thing disappeared. I sat there, gritting my teeth in total anxiety and utter silence. It wasn't long before the silence was broken by my uncle's gunshots and him screaming. I knew I had to go help, so I got up, and before I could make it to the door, he comes running back in, slamming the door behind him and locking it. He was bleeding profusely on his left arm. I can't tell if he was clawed or bitten, but what I had to do was go run and tear up a shirt to use it as a bandage to stop the bleeding. It was that bad. I remember asking him if I should call 911, and he quickly told me not to, that it was a waste of time. Things had subsided after that, and the rest of the evening calmed itself down. It was later revealed to me that he's been having weird issues and things showing up on his property long before I'd ever shown up there, and he's called 911 and the police out there before. Of course, they're never able to find any evidence of such things happening, and have threatened to arrest him and detain him again if he calls 911 one more time. Okay, before I tell you this, I need you to know that this is the absolute truth. I saw this, my friends and I saw this. I don't have an explanation for what we witnessed, but it was what it was. It was a Friday night, and me and my girlfriends decided we would have a good time, having some drinks and playing cards against humanity. We're all 21, so we wanted to have a good girls' night out. We began having some drinks, and playing card games when the only sober one who hadn't started drinking yet had suggested we go pick up her friend, because she's got tons more good booze. We only had beer and we wanted to get pretty hammered. We decided that would be a great idea. Most of us had had only one beer at this point, and the girl that mentioned this hadn't even drank yet. So, we all piled into her car, since there was only 5 of us in total, and began the drive toward her friend's house. Her friend lives in the next town over, and in between the 2 towns is a lot of farmland, agriculture, stuff like that. There's a part in the road where it wraps around this huge apple orchard. The way we had to get to this girl's house was by driving around this thing. It was dark, but the moon was shining bright and was illuminating much of the area around. It was creepy enough as it was. As we were driving, I was already looking into the orchard, seeing the hundreds of trees and huge lot of all the apple harvesting, and I saw what looked to come straight out of my nightmare. We were driving about 30 miles an hour on this road because, well, it was dark, and off into the orchard was this thing approaching the car quickly. It was tall, looked to be in a torn-up leather-like coat or something, but I could definitively see that it had long claws. The only thing I remember about its face was it had orange glowing eyes, and the face looked extremely disfigured with its mouth hanging open. It didn't look like an animal, bear, dog, etc. It was very humanoid looking. I saw this thing with its mouth open running at our car, with its claws outstretched toward us, and I began losing my shit. I was screaming, and the other girls looked over and saw what I saw and began screaming, and all of us losing our shit together. The driver saw, and she almost drove us off the road. She was so terrified. She slammed on the gas, and we were easily doing 70. To her horror, she looked in the rearview mirror, and this thing was following our car, and keeping up with it. It was closing in on the car when we approached the turn we needed to make to get to her friend's house. Instead, we just kept going straight, trying to shake this thing from our tail. Remember that where we are, there's nothing else around. There was just large, vast fields all around us used for various types of farming and agriculture. No houses even. We're way the hell out here. We had passed a large bend in the road, going in the total opposite direction that we needed to, and it looked like after some time, this thing disappeared and stopped following our car. We were all still freaking the hell out, wondering what on earth was that thing that had followed the car. I think we just kept driving for about another 30 minutes before finally stopping at some abandoned, or what we thought at the time was abandoned gas station, and deciding how the hell we were going to get back home. We certainly didn't want to go the way we came, but it was the only real way to go. It certainly didn't help the gas station we pulled into was creepy as hell, and virtually no one else around. We decided to all pile into the gas station and potentially ask for help, get water, and try to calm down. We went inside and told the guy behind the counter we were being followed by some weird-ass creature, and it chased our vehicle. He seemed freaked out, but also in a little bit disbelief and not sure why 5 girls were in his gas station shop freaking the hell out. An older gentleman who had happened to pull into the gas station just happened to come in and overhear us. He seemed really concerned. He seemed like a very nice, genuine old man who wanted to help out. He told us and offered that he would drive behind us all the way home to make sure that we're safe. He had told us that he wanted to talk to us outside before we left. The clerk inside wished us luck. When he pulled us outside, he looked around, had a panicked look on his face, and asked us where we saw what we did. We had told him what had happened again, and he told us he's seen it too, that there's something that orchard draws in, a negative, evil energy. He says that ever since they built it, he's felt a weird energy coming around that area. Then he went on to tell us the history. I guess a long time ago, before they built the orchard there, before they had even cleared out all the property, there was a lot of occultism going on. The land had been privately owned, and it was primarily used for black magic and evil worship that had supposedly been going on for years and years. He even told us that there was rumors of human sacrifice that had taken place. He says because of the thick forestation that property used to hold, it made the perfect place for black magic rituals and occult meetups. He told us that at some point the land had been purchased, cleared out, and the orchard was put there in its place. Weird sightings of things had been reported since, and all of that really gave us the creeps. We felt safer with him, assuring that we'd be able to get through the area safe and sound. We got on the road and he followed closely behind us. It was getting pretty late at night. I was pissed that a fun girls' night out had turned into a freaking horror movie. We made our way back to the area near the orchard, and we'd sped up to get past there as fast as we could. We made it back into town, and the old man, who I won't mention his name, waved at us outside of his truck window and took off in a different direction. It's wonderful when you meet genuinely nice strangers who want to help you. We made it back safely to our house, called it a night. All the other girls went home. It's so weird because the area in which we went that night, none of us ever really go. At least for me, since I have no reason to ever go out that way. I didn't sleep well that night, and I couldn't get over the fear and panic of what we had seen, and just knowing the evil that resided in that area. We didn't get any weird vibes or felt bad, but it disturbs me that those things could have gone on. One thing is for certain though, I made sure to stay far the hell away from that area, and I'll never go near that orchard again.